Good afternoon and Swadika, the esteemed guests and attendees. Welcome to Hindu Media Conference at World Hindu Congress 2023, Bangkok. I would like to introduce Shri Vikram Sharma, who is a coordinator, Hindu Media Conference. Vikram Sharma is the editor of Hindu Post, a news and opinion digital media outlet that provides the correct perspective on issues concerning Hindu society. A former IT professional with 15 years of software industry experience in Bharat and in USA, Vikram volunteered as a community organizer with other Swayamsevaks before 2014 Lok Sabha elections. Later, he left his corporate job to dedicate himself to the Hindu civilizational cause by launching Hindu Post with Swami Vigyanand's blessings and guidance. I now invite Shri Vikram Sharma to kindly give his introductory remarks. Thank you.
Namaste and a very warm welcome to all the distinguished speakers and delegates to the Hindu Media Conference, which is being conducted by the Hindu Media Forum at the World Hindu Congress 2023, Bangkok. I hope everyone had a good lunch, but not too good. Any drowsiness you may be feeling should be dispelled by the power-packed lineup of speakers we have, not just for the coming session, but for all the 6 sessions over the next 2 days. Battery might be low. Now, I've been asked to speak about the importance of media and its impact on society, and to explain the purpose behind the Hindu Media Forum and why the media conference is one of the 7 conferences being organized at the World Hindu Congress. So, there are so many media experts here that this is almost like asking somebody to deliver a lecture on basic yoga to advanced yogis. But I'll still go ahead, because it's important to remember that the wider Hindu Samaj, including many well-qualified, high-achieving professionals, they also have a bit of a blind side when it comes to understanding how media can manipulate our minds, how it can change our perceptions, and subtly push an agenda. So let me get started with the job at hand. Media matters. Historically, too, we have seen that whoever is powerful, he tries to control the flow of information and the means of communication. So media being considered one of the most potent forces shaping society is nothing new. But modern media can be said to have started with the advent of newspapers. Now we remember in the pre-independence era, how the Britishers tried to censor any paper with a nationalist viewpoint. After independence too, that pattern continued. The governments tried to censor information, especially during the emergency era. Then we moved into the world of TV news. Initially, there was only a public broadcaster. Late 80s, early 90s saw a boom of private TV channels. Yet, even with the variety of TV channels on offer, the narrative that was being set was still controlled by a group of Nehruvian left liberal elites. And so basically the latent Hindu phobia in media has always been present. TV did nothing to change that. Now we move forward to the late 2000s. That is when the first serious challenge to the mainstream narrative that a certain group of people exercised, that came in the form of, with the advent of the internet, and that democratized the discourse. Now, ordinary people with analytical skills, with critical thinking ability, could go online, could express themselves, and they could challenge the so-called experts. Today, we are standing at another inflection point at the dawn of the AI age, and the power of media has increased manifold. So with AI, and especially generative AI coming into the mix with deep fakes and other things, A well-crafted strategy to wage an info war against a nation can have a crippling effect and demoralize the citizenry without even a shot being fired. And we have seen that multiple times over the last few years, during the farmers' protest, during CAA, even in foreign countries, overseas. Information warfare is real and it's here to stay. Unfortunately, Hindus have largely ignored this critical area as a community. As individuals, yes, we are present in media. We also are there in decision-making roles. But as a community, we fail to form a coherent worldview and ensure that our interests are safeguarded. And this is not just in media, but other important areas like education and politics as well. So as a result, anti-Hindu attitudes have become deeply entrenched. And self-loathing is rampant amongst some young Hindus with fancy degrees. And Hinduphobia is rearing its ugly head all over the world, as we have seen, whether it's Canada, USA, within Bharat. I mean, Bharat is one of the biggest sources of Hinduphobia. Now, next, I would like to just talk about the two main verticals in which we can categorize media, which is news media and entertainment media. So news media is ideally supposed to be the fourth pillar of democracy, but only if it does its job diligently and without bias. Actually speaking truth to power. But the reality is that due to the hypocrisy and arrogance of a global liberal elite who control the mainstream media architecture all over the world, this mainstream media is facing a crisis of credibility all over. Terms like paid media have become common. Instead of reflecting reality, the press and media actively filter and shape it. The selective focus on certain issues and complete apathy towards others leads the public to perceive some issues as more important than others. So if you do a simple thought experiment, you just look at the front page of any big newspaper in Bharat over a period of 1 month, and you just categorize the kind of news which become front page, which are reduced to small columns in the inside pages. You will get an idea of what kind of agenda is being set and peddled. At the same time, entertainment media is arguably even more powerful because it works at a deeper subconscious level. It affects our culture, what we wear, what we eat, what traditions we want to follow, our lifestyles, our aspirations. So being present in entertainment media, ensuring that our representation is correct, is very important. With the rise of digital media, we are now seeing that boundaries are blurring. News, entertainment, it's all merging. There is a new term called infotainment. And like I said, AI is adding more complexity to the mix. So just to delve a little bit more into news media, so this image is a good representation of how media, if it is biased, can distort our perceptions, making the victim the oppressor and the attacker as the victim. And if you look at Bharat, you can see multiple examples. You know, dangerous cattle smugglers become dairy transporters. Religiously indoctrinated men who groom minor girls, they are projected as interfaith relations battling majoritarian bigotry. Now we are hearing chatter of the impending genocide of India's minorities, while the actual ongoing gradual genocide in Pakistan and Bangladesh is ignored, which is unfolding before our eyes. If we go back just 50 years, the 1971 genocide in Bangladesh, it was censored. It never registered in our public consciousness. Cut to 1990, the Kashmiri Pandit exodus. I was in Mumbai in class 7th at the time. I remember in my school, a couple of Kashmiri Pandit teachers had come. We were just told that they had to come in a hurry, but not why. Neither news covered it, neither our parents discussed it, communities didn't discuss it. And it took a movie 32 years later to actually help the victims process the pain that had been buried deep inside. And a more recent example is the 2021 post-poll violence. I think the correct term is pogrom, a state-sanctioned pogrom, where we saw dozens of lives being claimed within the first month of the election results being announced. 1 lakh people displaced, many to neighboring states like Assam. And a staggering 7,000 women were molested or worse. And I'm not plucking this figure out of thin air. This was the result of a fact-finding team led by a retired Chief Justice of Sikkim High Court and IS/IPS officers. And the way our media has covered this, it's like, they just downplayed the violence. There was some minimal coverage. And it was branded as routine political violence seen in the state. So this shows that even though now we are bringing up these issues more and more, the mainstream media still has a powerful control over the narrative. If we talk about okay, so this is another good representation of how media distorts reality. So this is a recurring pattern, which many of us have seen, that visually a Hindu sadhu is represented when a crime is committed by the occult practitioner or black magic practitioner of the person of another faith. So this shows the inherent anti-Hindu prejudice and lack of integrity of many mainstream media outlets. Quickly, let's talk about films. So this is the research done by an IIM Ahmedabad professor. He, I believe, is now in IIM Rohtak. So his team picked 50 Bollywood films per decade from the 60s to the 2010s and analyzed those. So it turned out that 58% of the corrupt politicians had a Brahmin last name, 62% of the corrupt businessmen had a Vaishya last name, 84% of the Muslims in the films were shown as strongly religious and honest, even if they were involved in crime. And what is even more staggering is the Pakistan love that we see in many of our media houses, leading media houses. So 18 of those films had Pakistani characters, and they were projected as welcoming, courteous, open-minded, courageous, the good Maulana who takes care of everybody. Whereas the real Maulana, Miya Mittu, we all know what he does. But the impact is so deep that 94% of the 150 school students who were shown these, who were asked about the perceptions that were created by the films, they said, yes, this is authentic. Now I'll just play a small clip.
और तेरी कुंडली मेरे हाथ में तब से है जब से तू गेटी गैलेक्सी थिएटर के बाहर टिकट ब्लैक करता था, धारावी झोपड़पट्टी में दारू की भट्टी लगाता था, सहारनपुर रेड लाइट एरिया में लड़कियां सप्लाई करता था, और आज भी तेरी कुंडली मेरे हाथ में, क्योंकि जैसा मैंने कहा था, तुझे कुत्ते की तरह यहां से घसीट के लेके जाऊंगा।
तेरे खाली मस्तक पे दस्तक दे सिंघम, सही गलत का ज्ञान ले।
मैं लेता नहीं, देता हूं।
अब तू दिखा दे राहें सदके तेरे, कर लूं मैं पूरे खुद से जो वादे मेरे, अब तू दिखा दे राहें में सदके तेरी दुआ।
साला हिंदुस्तान में जब तक
So I think this clip says all that has to be said about, how Bollywood, sections of Bollywood continue to operate. So now the question is, why Hindu Media Forum? Why do we need a media forum for Hindus? Isn't that communal? So the thing is, Hindus are facing a multi-pronged threat from all sides. So our response has to be equally robust, equally forthright. And it's clear that we must come together. We must come together to safeguard our interests and project the right narrative, both in news media and entertainment media. And I think it's a natural corollary that if the Hindu viewpoint is safeguarded, it will lead to a healthy society where we have mutual respect for diverse cultures and civilizations. Otherwise, we are headed for the clash of civilizations. Okay, so the Hindu Media Forum was formed in 2013 as a platform to advocate for the Hindu viewpoint in both emerging and traditional forms of media, to advocate as an advocacy platform. It mobilizes elements in all the forms of media to provide the correct perspective on issues impacting Hindus. And it also tries to influence the entertainment industry to correct the misperceptions and provide a right picture of Hindu Dharma and Hindu Samaj. Okay, so what have we done till now? So we have organized 3 media conferences in the 2 World Hindu Congress that preceded this one. We have also organized 4 minor conferences just for news and entertainment media in different parts of Bharat. We have launched HinduPost.in. It's in Jan 2016. It's a news portal dedicated to promoting or presenting the right picture about Hindus. But there is a long way to go yet. The challenge before us is immense. And yes, there has been some welcome course correction in both news media, entertainment media. But we have to realize that, this is an uphill battle. We are still fighting a guerrilla war against a very well-funded, well-entrenched enemy. And it's going to be a long battle. So we have to come together. We should collaborate. We have to be disruptive, make the optimum use of resources, challenge the status quo, and then try to capture the existing institutions. Don't just let them be, right? So that has to be our mantra. So this slide just shows how the Overton window can be shifted. So this is basically saying that any new idea originally seems unthinkable. But if you persist, if you put up the evidence, if you make your case, gradually it becomes a desired idea. And there has been tremendous progress in the last 10 years. The things we are able to talk about openly now was just not possible 10 years back. So we should be cognizant of that, while at the same time realizing the challenge ahead. So this African proverb says, until the lion tells his side of the story, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. So we have to tell our stories, not just us, everybody in the global south. The indigenous voices have to come out, and they have to challenge the mainstream narrative. Sorry about the clicker. So now this shows that we understand media is important, and this is how World Hindu Congress basically tries to organize society around these 7 different streams: media, economy, politics, education, organizations, women, and youth. So all of these have to work together. We have to bring about change in all these spheres if we want a prosperous and a dignified life for Hindus. So all these 7 streams, that is why they are the focus of World Hindu Congress. Okay, now I'll quickly talk about the structure of the media conference. So there'll be 6 sessions. They will all follow the same pattern, 75 minutes for each session, with a session chair and 3 speakers. Unfortunately for this session, our 3rd speaker is unwell, Shri Ashok Srivastav, so he could not make it. So then we will have a session introduction by the chair for about 5 minutes. Then each speaker will speak for 10 minutes. Afterwards, we will have a panel discussion and an audience Q&A for 30-35 minutes. And then the chair will conclude the session by summarizing the discussion and the key takeaways. Oh yeah, and there'll be 2 sessions today, this one and the one following, and then 4 sessions on Saturday. Sunday is just for the concluding and the plenary session. There'll be no parallel conferences going on. So today's session is about news media, whether it's performing its dharma. Now, one of the many meanings of dharma is doing your duty, to uphold righteousness, to create a healthy samaj, individual. So this is what we will be exploring in this session, whether news media is doing its duty. Session 2 will be about policy and regulation challenges in a fast-changing technology landscape in media. So even mainstream or traditional media regulation, whether it has been successful or not is debatable. But with technology coming into the mix, with big tech social media platforms, which often do not even accept or recognize our sovereignty, and now AI also coming into the mix. So the challenges have grown, and we'll try to explore what our government is doing, what other countries are doing in this session. Session 3, which is the first session tomorrow, will be about digital media. So like I said earlier, this has really leveled the playing field. It has democratized discourse. And there's a lot of interesting path-breaking work taking place. But there are challenges as well. So we'll take a look at this critical area in the third session. Session 4 is about building an alternative narrative. So here we have brought together people who are doing some unique and very interesting work, and they are actually fundamentally challenging the status quo. So it will be about building an alternative narrative, which is at the same time the correct narrative. Session 5 will focus on entertainment media. So we know its importance, and there has been a welcome change in terms of the stories that are now coming out. But OTT is another area where we cannot afford to ignore because that's becoming very important. So we'll get into those issues in this session. Session 6 will be about the Hindu perspective in publishing and media studies. So publishing, we are trying to cover magazines, fiction, non-fiction. And the media studies will be briefly touched upon because the way we train our journalists in the journalism colleges and mass communication courses, that determines the quality of people who get into the news field. So some of our brightest minds are being lost to this indoctrination that is going on, not just in mass communication or journalism, but all academia. So what can we do to change that? So with that, I'll conclude. And I hope you all have a very rewarding and engaging experience at the Hindu Media Conference. And I hope it inspires you to continue doing whatever you're doing in the service of Dharma. Jayasya Ayatanam Dharma, Dharma the abode of victory. Thank you.